Has he maybe finally accepted the kids not like him? It's been clear to us this season, but maybe, just maybe, the penny has finally dropped. Dexter, your son is different. He's not like you. Another great episode. This series continues to be really strong and up there with the best of the show. And that's the lead, really. Dexter is great. I'm loving it. Welcome back, you lovely lot. This is Dissecting Dexter, the internet's longest running Dexter podcast. I'm your host, Gareth, here as always, coming to you from Yorkshire, England, where I'm raring to go and get stuck into another episode. We're just into August now. July was a whirlwind for me and the podcast. I had the interview with Intari. I got sent screeners for the first 4 episodes, so I got to watch those early, but I felt very fortunate to be blessed with that. We had all the glitz in the press from the New York premiere event, the 2-episode premiere of the show itself on Paramount Plus. I went to London for the Dexter experience, and you may not have heard the last of that. I'm hoping to explore that more in the coming week. Watch this space. Then we've been dissecting Dexter together all month, haven't we? Including an episode with Nick helping me. That's all been really fun. And then I chatted with Scott last Monday, and it was brilliant to catch up with him again. He's so open and willing to talk about the show, and given his position on the show, let's be honest, what he doesn't know isn't worth knowing. I've got irons in the fire for further guests, which may or may not happen, but I'm trying. And it's good to know you enjoy it when I have people on with me to talk about the episodes. It is good to bounce off someone, but I'm sure you can understand it's not always possible to do it. Not every week. This brings me to something I talked about on a Shortcuts episode on Patreon this week. If you heard my chat with Scott, you'll have heard at the beginning, of course, the sound bites where he confirms that Gareth is named after me. If you're listening, Scott, honestly, I'm still buzzing from that. Thank you again so much. But it made me really think and reflect and appreciate just how far the podcast has come. From very humble beginnings, just talking on my own into my phone, in my lunch hour, at the side of a field in beautiful rural North Yorkshire, England, or perhaps just sitting in my car, boiling, because I've got the windows up to try and minimise the sound from outside. To all the stuff that's going on now, I have to pinch myself, but I said on Patreon that I want to say thanks to everyone who contributes, supports, or just downloads and listens. You all help in your own way to make this podcast what it is, and I couldn't do it without you. Okay, sloppy stuff out of the way. You're here to dissect some Dexter with me, aren't you? I do want to say, though, just before we get stuck in, I mentioned a shortcut podcast. These are exclusive to Patreon subscribers. As I record today, I've done 11 of them now. I've also started uploading guaranteed ad-free versions of the main podcast. The proceeds from Patreon genuinely help keep the podcast on the air, covering the running costs, and I'm so grateful to those who support me there. Special thanks, as always, to the higher tier supporters, Phil, Nick, John, Ryan, Kelly and Jennifer. If you want to support me on Patreon, tiers start at £2 a month, and rewards include accessing the shortcuts, Patreon chat room, you can get ad-free podcasts, maybe get a personal video message from me, or even an invite onto a future Dissecting Dexter podcast. www.com/dissectingdexter. Right, enough preamble. I'm eager to dig into this episode, and I'm sure you are too, so let's do it. Does that make me podcast horny? This is Dexter Resurrection, Season 1, Episode 5, Murder Horny. Original air date, the 1st of August, 2025. Directed by Marco Siega and written by Tanner Bean and Alexandra Franklin. So the reunion played out as I suspected it might do. Harrison's shocked. Too shocked to entertain a conversation. Not that we should be surprised. Did you notice Harrison give Dexter a little shove and kind of caught him in the chest. Dexter's hand goes up. We know it's still tender. I thought, actually, just a sidebar, if Dexter had got in the shower with Mia last week, she'd have seen a recent bullet hole scar in the middle of his chest, wouldn't she? That might have prompted a question or two. Oh, another sidebar. The preview flashes this week, they seem quicker than before, and I couldn't see much to make sense of the images out of context. So yeah, nice job. So, Dexter takes Harrison back to his place, and I wonder what the car journey was like. Silent, maybe? Awkward, maybe? Definitely.
How the fuck are you alive?
Good question. The ice-cold weather slowed my heart rate and I didn't bleed out. But I was in a coma for 10 weeks, and the doctor said...
You're like a goddamn horror movie villain, like Michael Myers or the fucking guy with the hockey mask. You think they're dead and then...
There certainly are some similarities.
I love the reference to Michael Myers and Jason. Oh. Sorry about that. My cat trying to get in on the podcast. She'll be wanting royalties next. Yes, Scott mentioned these serial killers last week. We were talking about the conversation when with Michael when he asked about whether Dexter could come back from the dead. First ever reference to real-world horror characters, maybe? It made me laugh. It almost broke the fourth wall, calling out to fans who maybe felt that bringing Dexter back was like a horror movie character resurrecting supernaturally. Sorry, she just jumped up on the keyboard. Are you plotting something? Scott said... Sorry about that. Scott said we'd get some scenes of characters in a room just talking, and this is the first of them. I love it too, saying things, asking questions that need to be asked. Organic and natural to the situation, nothing felt shoehorned. Good writing. Dexter notices the weight bearing down on Harrison, and he does a good thing and exonerates him for shooting him, absolving him of responsibility. And he's right too. Actually, Dexter does a lot of good in the dad department this episode. Some of it in his own Dexter-y kind of way, of course, but trying to ease the emotional burden on your child is something that any parent could empathise with. Dexter seems sincere. He's had time to think, hasn't he? Putting that thing on his son at the end of New Blood, that was horrendous. One of the things that turned many of us against him at the end of New Blood. And this works towards repairing that. I like it. In this first conversation, though, Dexter's still presuming that Harrison has the same darkness, the same urges, and he seriously miscalculates. He doesn't know the exact circumstances of Ryan's death, and he's trying to empathise, which in itself is a positive thing, but he's way off the mark.
When I was in college, there was this frat guy, a lot like Ryan, predator, rapist. He tried to assault your Aunt Deb.
Get the fuck out of here!
And if she hadn't stopped me, I would have done the same thing you did. So trust me, I get it. I was just like you. When I was your age, I felt that same darkness. I thought about killing all the time, too. It wasn't until my first kill I was 20 years old that I felt, finally, that release.
Release? I'm in hell. I have nightmares about killing Ryan. I see his face everywhere.
I'm in hell. That's a shock to Dexter. It's clear to us, and it needs to become clear to Dexter too. Harrison got nothing positive from killing Ryan. He's absolutely racked with guilt and trauma. Dexter tries to find some positive spin about the woman being spared from Ryan's appalling behaviour. We see Harrison's good morality, saying he knows he should have called security, not killed the guy. He pushes back on everything Dexter tried to teach him in New Blood, the grooming, the misplaced nurturing, trying to shape him into the same kind of killer Dexter assumed he needed to be. We know it's wrong, and I love Harrison for calling him out for the same thing. He's angry, and rightly so. This wonderful scene goes on, though. Dexter realises Harrison's spoken to Batista. Harrison says how Angel deceived him by not telling him his dad had survived, manipulating him into implicating him. Dexter gets an inkling of what Batista's aiming for. Gives him something to think about. When Dexter takes Ryan's watch, I thought that was very symbolic. It wasn't just the practical relief, just taking the object away from him. It's almost like a further unburdening emotionally, helping his son to take another step away from it. The reunion breaks down, though. There's still too much anger and resentment. He blames his dad for everything he's been suffering. There's still so much more to be said, but that has to wait. I liked Harry appearing and saying he didn't know what to do. Now, obviously we know Harry represents a part of Dexter's mind, and this just underlines that he's adrift here. Big scene there, and more to come later.
Let me give you a little advice. Serial killer to serial killer. Where you went wrong was thinking you could have it all. A family and your dark passenger.
You're listening to Dissecting Dexter.
We join Liam Prater giving a TV interview. I didn't recognise the lady interviewer, but I looked her up and she's called Leslie Stahl, a veteran American TV journalist. But it's interesting what he says about his parents dying in a car crash and then him growing up in a foster home. You know, I like to understand characters, why they do the things they do. His obsession with serial killers comes from somewhere. Could the foster system be a clue? We saw how that went for Brian. Prater certainly had the trauma of losing his parents at a young age. However, much of what he says, how much of it can we believe? I think there may be at least an element of truth in what he says, but it's hard to discern truth from fiction. Was it all true? Was it all a lie? I don't know. I think we'll learn more as we go along, and he was a little cagey and a bit guarded with some of his answers, so there's a lot more to learn there. It is interesting to learn that Prater's been so financially generous to the families of those who grew up in the same foster home. Could they have had shared trauma while they were there? Yes, I'm guilty of making a massive assumption, but there's usually something that drives people down a dark path, and Prater's certainly on a dark path, if not the same one as Dexter and the other members of that little group. I feel we've yet to learn what the deal is with this guy. What is it that's pushed him down the dark path? Is it simply the childhood trauma that was uncounselled, untreated, unaided, for want of better words? In front of cameras, he doesn't look terribly relaxed. They talk about his financial support for the police foundation and mention an upcoming saga. He's asked why this cause gets his support. He alludes to the help that he got when his parents were killed, but he cuts himself off, suggesting all is not as it seems, which isn't a stretch given that this is Dexter. But that's interesting. Back with Harrison, and you just knew Wallace would return his call, and she's not letting him off the hook. She's so matter of fact. I think Scott mentioned about her being on the spectrum. Apologies if I've misremembered that and I'm misquoting him and I'm just expressing a thought that I had. But it wouldn't surprise me if she was. And as a detective, we can see what a strength that is. And I like that if she is on the spectrum, it's not being referred to, because it doesn't matter. She is just who she is. And that's how it should be. It shouldn't define her. But for Harrison, she passive-aggressively manipulates him into meeting her, and she gets to give him a further grilling. She brings up Iron Lake and how he saved the school from a would-be killer. We, of course, know things went down a tiny bit differently to how they look on public record. Remember that great scene between Deb and Dexter, analysing the blood? It was one of our highlights of the series, wasn't it? Harrison, he's just totally uncomfortable under Wallace's gaze, and who wouldn't be? She's always watching closely, reading everything, but he's completely intimidated and his discomfort is obvious. Good job by Jack Olcott, but not great by Harrison. Dexter, meanwhile, is feeling pangs of loneliness. He's afraid of ending up alone, Harrison being the only person he's got, and likewise for Harrison. Dexter's attention turns to Mia. He hopes they have things in common, although their entire acquaintance is under false pretenses, so how long before this gets a bit more awkward? Dexter's suggestion to go to Swan Lake I thought was a nice gesture, although she's not excited by the idea for her own reasons. It was an unselfish suggestion though, certainly on the surface. You know what I mean. Him knowing that she used to do ballet and thought that it might be something that she'd like. They end up bowling, and I love the thing with the 7-10 split, but she's good at bowling though. If he can pull off shots like that and still she wins, wow. The shot following the bowling ball down the alley though made me think of The Big Lebowski. Mia suggests that they collaborate on a kill, which is a surprise to us and Dexter. Harry pokes fun at him, like, when has him killing with somebody else ever ended well? He's basically arguing with himself, isn't he, whether to go for it or not, and what might happen if Mia learns Dexter's the Bay Harbour Butcher. Harry's comment about Dexter having killed over 150 serial killers. Is that the first time we've heard that number? We've obviously not seen him kill that many on screen, but he's gone through a hell of a lot of bloodslides. I do wonder if Prater would forgive all sins to have the Bay Harbour Butcher at his dinner table. Or maybe not. He likes to have control, so we're told. Harry suggests Dexter's only considering the joint kill because he's afraid of ending up alone, hedging his bets. Like a long-term relationship with Mia was ever really on the cards, seriously. Oh, Dexter. We hear a crash and we get a setup for Dexter considering the possibility of dying alone. Something that perhaps scares him. Blessing's mother has a fall, Dexter helps her, and we learn that she's had cancer treatment but now just wants to be at home with her family so that she's not alone when the day comes for her to pass on. Dexter hears arguing later, suggesting it's a very sore subject between her and Blessing. We catch up with Charlie, albeit briefly. She visits her mother in hospital. The medication sheet says that she has glioblastoma. I had to Google it. It's an aggressive type of cancer that originates in the brain, so not good at all. Credit to Uma Thurman here. Her whole demeanour is so much softer and totally different to when we've seen her before as Charlie. Gone is that swagger. From what she says to her mother, it sounds like she's possibly making up a teaching job. Maybe something that she used to do. Perhaps just a total fabrication altogether to please her mum. She can hardly tell her what she really does, can she? What it makes us wonder, though, is this why she's with Prater? Compromising her own moral values to make some good money to pay for her mum's cancer treatment. She looked at Dexter with such disdain last week. She's not cut from the same cloth as the others, that's clear. We know she's far from perfect and gets her hands dirty in the worst way, like clubbing the guy with that bat. We know from pre-season that she's meant to have a special ops background, so she's trained, and she's perhaps used to committing violence for her country. This is different though, but it seems she might be doing it ultimately with good intentions.
From the tiniest drop of blood, I can determine how a man was killed.
This is the Dissecting Dexter podcast.
I can't make any sense of this.
Dexter's got a new slide box. showing complete intent to get back to what he loves doing. He secretes the box in an old hidey hole used by Blessing's daughter for her weed. I wonder if she'll discover it at some point. He calls Harrison back. He needs to give him more space, doesn't he? Harrison moans about the stress of the Ryan situation and the police. Dexter wonders what he can do to help. Just an idle musing right now, but later the musing evolves into an idea when an opportunity comes along. He meets back up with Mia, and during their conversation Dexter maybe slips up, mentioning Miami. We presume that Ronnie Schmidt was New York born and bred, given how he spoke and what he said, but Dexter mentions growing up in Miami, which, given how the episode plays out, I think this could come back to haunt him and bite him in the arse in a big way. Significantly though, Mia reveals something about her supposed code.
Honestly, I was gonna say it would be fun to try it your way.
Seems like kind of a small target to find a rideshare driver who's also a sexual predator.
Any driver will do.
But you only kill sexual predators. What about the story you told me about your mom's boyfriend?
Sure. It started out that way. He was my origin story. And then the next few times I targeted men like him because I wanted to create the rush of my first kill. But between us, I just enjoy killing. And when I have an itch, I scratch it.
Oh, any driver will do. And in that moment, she slotted perfectly into fitting his code. So she's just like all the others. It makes Dexter unique again, doesn't it? Just as he thought he wasn't alone, and maybe Mia could be someone he could forge some sort of relationship or friendship with, she pulls the rug out from under him with this reveal. Not that she realised it. She's cold and callous just like the rest of them. Now he's thinking, shit, I've got to kill her too. But can he? Two of Prater's group disappearing in quick succession, just as the new guy joins the group. How will that look? We don't have long to find out, but Harry plays the I told you so card, telling him that Mia was never the answer. Harrison is. He's right, of course. Build a relationship with your son. Much better to do that than a relationship with a cold, calculating serial killer. I'm not sure what Dexter's plan was. He seems to be ready to play along with Mia that evening, but when she goes to get into a taxi, he pulls her away. The conversation, though, is cleverly written, like they could be talking about having sex, planning to have sex. Performance anxiety, it's okay to change your mind, and she says she's all murder horny, so she's off to find someone. This concept amused me, like she was all in the mood, all in the mindset to kill someone. Now Dexter's got cold feet, but she's still amped up and turned on for it, so she's going to go and do it anyway, just with someone else. We see her entering a bar a bit later, looking $1 million, oozing confidence, sexual confidence. She sits with a man, and it's not clear if he was expecting her or not. I wonder if she just went on Tinder or something and set up a date. Meanwhile, Dexter breaks into her apartment, and his plan becomes clear very quickly. He's seen an opportunity to help Harrison and set up Mia for Ryan's murder. This was predicted by at least one listener last week. Credit to Tyden. I found your email predicting exactly this. I'm sorry if I've missed anyone else who said something along the same lines. I like Dexter adopting a New York accent when he made the 911 call, making it sound more authentic, like it's a local person, but also if they play back the call, it might not readily sound like Dexter. Those kill tools of Mia's look nasty. It seemed like she was going to take the man's bloody eye out, but we were spared some hostel-level gore by the police busting in, just in time. And there's some listener feedback about the timing of that, but, what are you going to do? It needed to happen. But it still remains to be seen if they get away with this. Mia knows the watch must be planted, or she will do. She knows Dexter, or Red said he was from Miami. Depending on what comes next, this could all still unravel for Dexter, and if not, Harrison, or maybe both. Wallace and Oliver attend the scene, and Wallace seems unsettled by it. It doesn't sit well with her. The sudden apparent solving of the Ryan Foster case in this way was not something she saw coming. She wants a face-to-face with Mia, though, and I can see things unravelling. I don't imagine Mia will cop for a murder she didn't commit, and she'll know Red betrayed her, surely. Will she drop him in it as the dark passenger killer? Wallace will have to track back through a whole web of lies. Question is, will Prater be prepared to leave Mia alive in custody and run the risk of her cutting a deal and revealing his group? Him supporting the police supporting the police financially reminds me of Gus Fring in Breaking Bad. He was a benefactor to the police too. We see Prater eating blood oranges, which was a nice callback to the original series opening titles. He gets an update about Mia and that Charlie can't easily get to her. Immediately we're thinking, does he intend to kill her? He's got a lot to lose if she decided to make a deal and bargain with the police and tell them about a bunch of serial killers having dinner parties with this famous billionaire. He'd be done. He's cold and no nonsense in this scene, a far cry from the Willy Wonka figure showing Dexter around his collection with giddy abandon. Meanwhile, Batista sees the police have got Lady Vengeance for Ryan Foster's murder, and he's baffled, he's blindsided by this, and it doesn't make any sense to him. Is he going to go back to Wallace and compare notes? I don't think she was 100% convinced by how it turned out, so I can see the two of them joining forces. From Batista's point of view, and this doesn't do anything good for Dexter at all, but he needs to share all his information with Wallace, and maybe we'll see that next week. Harrison hears about the developments and goes to see Dexter again. They make me very happy with this show. Two people talking in a room and saying what needs to be said again. Although there's so much more still to be talked about. There's still time for that, though. For now, this scene makes me very happy. They sat down opposite each other at the table, and my chat with Scott came back to mind, and how he teased some great conversation this week. Also, it will come as no surprise to you that I found this scene moving.
I was so surprised when your mom loved me. When you were born, I was scared to death. But I didn't know how to have a family and still be me. Trinity seemed like a devoted husband and father. I thought I could learn from him. Stupid. I let the line blur between Trinity being my mentor and my target. After I killed him, I came home and discovered he'd already killed your mom. She died because of my selfishness. Because of my mistake. And it broke me. The truth. Finally.
It's a big weight off Dexter's shoulders, to be honest with Harrison about this, and maybe cathartic for Harrison too, but it illustrates how balancing a family with being a serial killer doesn't work for Dexter. The two can't coexist. Remember Trinity mocking him for thinking he could have it all. How many more innocent people have to die to remind him of that? Harrison asks the question himself. Innocence dying in the future, and in truth there's no guarantee, is there? But Dexter thinks that Harrison's the key. Through the conversation, I rejoiced to hear Dexter acknowledge aloud that he accepts that Harrison is not like him. You see Harrison's expression change. It seems to soften. He's not a serial killer. He has no desire to do what Dexter does. He's troubled and traumatised, yes. Big yes. But he's not without hope. I realise that perhaps Dexter, even if he doesn't stop killing, he can help Harrison by reminding him of the difference between them. Harrison doubts himself, but this is where his dad can help him. Dexter makes a commitment, a promise, to never try to mould him into his image again. And he seems sincere, and I believe that this is what he intends in this moment. And I say in this moment because we know Dexter, sadly. But I am rooting for them. I really am. But we've seen so many times when Dexter just can't help himself. I just hope this is a new dad Dexter moving forward, who will make every effort to stay true to his word and his relationship with his son, and helping him in a positive way, not negative, will be his motivation. He says sorry, he apologises, and comes out with a line that I found really touching and moving.
I promise I won't try to mold you in my image ever again. I'm sorry. Harrison, I have so many reasons to kill. But you're my reason to live. I still want a family. And you're all I have. You're all I have too. You did good.
Harry standing behind Harrison there. It's beautifully symbolic, and I really hope this is a turning point for these characters. It got me, again, a second time, rewatching it for the podcast. You did good, Harry says. Of course it's Dexter saying that internally, but I think it's that nugget of good working for him. He's making good repair with his son, and making it his sincere intention to do right by him, even if he has to keep killing, which we know he will. Harrison reaches out and touches his hand, just gently. Really powerful moment for these two, and the show itself, wonderful scene, and I tip my hat to all involved. Thank you. We end the episode, though, not here, but with Mia and Charlie. Charlie blags away into the jail, posing as a lawyer. She makes a comment to suggest that she genuinely went to law school. Mia says she's not going to make any waves for Prater. I don't know, though. If she ends up facing the death penalty, is she going to sing like a bird? Charlie, though, in a way that's laced with veiled threat and hidden meaning, says they're going to make sure Mia's stay here is going to be as comfortable and as short as possible. So what the bloody hell does that mean? Are they going to try and take her out ASAP, or genuinely do what they can to get her out? I can't see any scenario where the authorities let her go. They had her banged to rights, victim in restraints and kill tools, poised for violence, plus all the trophies of past victims. No way is she getting out on bail. So what then? I guess we'll find out. As Michael C. Hall's own band plays over the credits, I was thinking more about Dexter and Harrison and the uneasy reconciliation. I think Harrison still has very complicated feelings towards his dad, but I'm keen to see how it goes from here. I'm rooting for them. What about you?
Listener feedback.
You can always get in touch with me by emailing dissectingdexter@gmail.com, like Shabana, who got in touch twice this week, but had an important question. How does Angel think that Dexter was responsible for Rita and Deb's death? Very good question. Now, he mentioned LaGuerta as well, and we can see why he might reasonably think Dexter was directly responsible for that. Now, they know that Deb was shot by Saxon and Rita killed by Trinity. Dexter turned off the life support for Deb, and given Batista knows Dexter removed her body from the hospital, he knows for definite, he maybe deduced what happened in the hospital with Dexter turning off the life support. But obviously they knew that she'd have never recovered regardless, so he could reasonably say that Dexter caused Deb's death and it wouldn't be a lie. But maybe understandable. For Rita, though, perhaps he's making an assumption. Actually, I should say on Saxon. Now, when all that went down at the end of season 8, Batista was in a very different place with how things were going in his world and his relationship with Dexter. Now, maybe with time, he's looked back and reframed when Dexter killed Saxon and that flash of extreme violence that, I don't know, maybe he's reframed that in his head and that's just added to everything that's sort of swirling around in there. For Rita, though, perhaps Batista's making an assumption, given all he knows and all the thinking and research he's done since the end of season 8. He had all LaGuerta's notes, all her files. He's a good detective. He's had plenty of time to look at everything. Perhaps he's reaching. It's a stretch when he says Dexter caused Rita's death. We know Dexter caused it. But again, perhaps Batista's just been making lots of deductions and assumptions, perhaps. And his gut feeling is that Dexter had something to do with it, even indirectly, which is true. So Shabana emailed again to say, "This last episode was so good. It feels like every episode is better than the last. I loved the talk Dexter had with Harrison and finally telling him the truth, but I want him to tell Harrison about how Deb also died because he didn't kill that killer soon enough either, just like Trinity, and that he didn't kill LaGuerta. I want Dexter to tell someone the whole truth, be it Harrison or Angel. I agree with you that sometimes real deep conversations are better than action sequences, so I'm glad we're getting some of that. My nitpicks: how did Dexter know NYPD would show up that fast? I'm surprised they did, but I always love the accents he does. And how does he know Mia doesn't have any alibi for Ryan's murder? It seems Angel will put doubt into the detective about that anyway, but Dexter should vet who he frames too. Thanks, Shabana. The truth is, Dexter doesn't know whether Mia has an alibi for Ryan's murder. He didn't have time to research that. I suppose it underlines how him having a family and being a serial killer are not compatible. It makes him vulnerable. And we always remember the first rule of the code: don't get caught. But now, having a son is something he can't change. As for the NYPD showing up so quickly, we don't really know how much time it took for Mia to strip the guy down to his underpants and strap him to that frame. I don't know, 15 minutes maybe? I'd have thought that would be long enough for the police to respond to a possible murder. But yeah, I'm glad they got there too. Thank you. Danny Buttress emailed with a theory about Batista and Prater. He says, had Prater been obsessed with the Bay Harbor butcher case and noticed a weakness in Batista he could exploit? Is he fully aware of who Dexter is, and is it all an elaborate setup? Is there a score to settle on Prater's part? Thanks, Danny. I'm sure Prater will be a big fan of the butcher. He's got a nice little pedestal in his collection. And I'm sure Prater is very familiar with the case, but the public record shows it was Dokes. Could he have exploited Batista? I mean, I think Batista's more vulnerable now, but back then, I'm not sure. He certainly made mistakes during the original run of the show, but he was always a man of integrity and decency at his core. I can't see him compromising that. But my guess there is a possibility that Prater knows who Dexter really is, but my gut feeling says not. Nothing we've seen so far suggests a hint of suspicion from Prater towards him. Not for me anyway, but it would certainly be a twist. Madhavi emailed from Australia to say, wow, discovering Mia doesn't actually have a code and is heinous as the rest really took me by surprise. Her sudden turn gave me whiplash. 1 second she's sweet and flirty, and then suddenly she's mean and scary, like really scary. I and Dexter should have known she was too good to be true. The scene near the end where Harrison reaches his hand out for his father's was incredibly sweet and touching. I think Dexter was finally being open and honest in a way Harrison needed, including apologising and promising to stop trying to mould him in his image. Harrison is finally letting him in. It was my favourite scene, and the fact that Ghost Harry was watching over in the background just pulled my heartstrings even more. Thanks for that. Yeah, that was a turn, wasn't it? My wife and I both gasped when Mia so coldly revealed she doesn't care who she kills, removing any chance that she had a code like Dexter. That was an instant game changer right there for Dexter, and you could see the disappointment in his eyes. And yeah, that scene with Harrison and Dexter, a real heartstring tugger. Kelly in Florida has emailed to say she has a theory about Mia. She says, I believe either Prater and Charlie already know or will know for sure that Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher. Charlie will enlist his help to dispose of Mia for good, but before this happens, Claudette will have suspicions that Mia did not kill Ryan during the police interview, that we know is going to happen. She will bring up the trophies and Mia will be surprised by Ryan's watch. Thanks, Kelly. And like me, you found it getting a bit dusty in the room when Harrison reached out for his dad's hand. I'm certain Claudette will not believe that Mia killed Ryan. So she will be thinking, how did Ryan's watch come to be in her possession? Mia won't have a clue, but maybe when Claudette talks with Batista, they'll start to put it together. But they might also ask how Mia crossed paths with Dexter. I said it earlier, but it's all going to unravel, isn't it? I mean, Dexter's got form about pinning murders on other people. Look no further than Dokes. And Batista will remember that.
Hi Gareth, it's Michelle from Jersey again. Just checking in on the last episode, which I loved. Obviously, after last week's episode, it wasn't quite as much fun, but it was essential. I mean, in reality, this show is really about the evolution of Dexter, and I thought it played nicely into that. I love the scenes with Harrison and how they played that out. Felt like it made sense to me. And the way they went with Mia was a good, intelligent surprise. I know a lot of people were speculating that somehow Dexter would frame her, but I couldn't see how that would go with their relationship, and now, of course, it all made sense. Wanted to say that Prater, during his interview, his comments about the orphanage and or foster homes made it very hard for me to think that it didn't somehow tie into Brian. That's my thought. It just seemed too coincidental otherwise. The other thing I wanted to say was I'm constantly thinking, I don't know if you or any of your listeners were fans of Lucifer, the show Lucifer, which I also loved. Obviously, it's lighter, but he was also this sort of dark, villainous character that in reality had a good heart and was lovable, that you rooted for. And there were some other similarities that I'm always thinking, which is like, both of them are constantly questioning the people that, I'm just going to, for sake of a better word, use the word victims, even though that's not always the case. But they would be questioning them to try and understand themselves better, which I find really interesting. And also that both of them, when they've tried to do what they thought is the right thing by not hurting someone themselves and letting it be handled by law enforcement, there were horrible outcomes where innocents were harmed or killed, and they felt really guilty about it. So anyway, that's it for now, and thank you for allowing me to share and participate, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say. I know that most of us are like a bunch of junkies sitting up in the middle of the night waiting for the clock to strike midnight so we can watch. And I will be doing the same to listen to your podcast. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Much appreciated. It's 8 a.m. on a Friday morning for me, so I'm very glad the drop is at a more sociable time, but I know many of you stay up late to catch it at the first opportunity. I'm glad you made reference to Dexter's development. It's that personal journey we're invested in for so long, and it's made progress this week, I think. At least I hope, and Dexter really was completely sincere with Harrison and sticks to his promises. Your thought about Brian is interesting, and not the only person to bring it up this week. They really emphasise the foster home thing, which is obviously important to Prater, but does it mean he crossed paths with Brian? Maybe. Mamoon has emailed and says that he was happy with the way Harrison and Dexter's relationship went through the episode. He gives kudos to the writers for how they had Mia take the fall for Ryan Foster, but thinks Batista's going to spoil the party. He noted Charlie's reaction to Prater this week and wonders if she's with him just because he pays her mum's medical bills, or maybe she was in a foster home too. He wonders if she'll end up killing him or otherwise getting him killed. Thanks, Mamoon. I don't know if she'll kill Prater. Would she bite the hand that feeds? He's probably paying her an absolute fortune to do what she does. But if her mum died, would that take away her motivation for working for him, her need for lots of money? And would she leave him or let good win out and, who knows, maybe help Dexter in some way down the line? Laurie has emailed and said the bit when Dexter admitted his part in Rita's death was her favourite. She writes, I have long been a Rita fan, even when the fan base hated her. I believe that the relationship that Dexter had with her and Deb is what made the fans root for him. With them, he showed his humanity. If they could love him and root for him, so could we. I know Rita wasn't a huge fan favourite because they thought she got in his way, but I always believed he really loved her and that her death impacted him more than the fans knew. I think she is what made him try to be a better person, and this conversation with Harrison proves that. She's been mentioned a lot this season, and I would love for the show to find a way of bringing her back. I always thought Julie and Michael had great on-screen chemistry, and their scenes were great. I think they could bring her back as Harrison's consciousness, or even Dexter's, and her helping him deal with Harrison. Thanks, Laurie. Undoubtedly a Rita fan there, and that's great. My eldest son, who, as I mentioned before, is working his way through Dexter. He's in season 3, and he's a big Rita fan. Oh dear. Good times to come. Rita, though, did get some flack from viewers back in the day because she got in the way of Dexter doing what we love to see him doing. However, she represented something he was always aspiring to, certainly back then. Normality, or living a life like the people he saw around him. She represented stability and love, and through her, he had a family, and we saw back then how much that meant to him. And this week, we've seen him realise, again, how much it means to him. Perhaps he will seek out Asta and Cody eventually. Question is, did he ever really love Rita? I honestly think the jury's out on that one. Perhaps that's a question for Scott or one of the other writers from back in the day. Did they think Dexter really loved her? Is that how they wrote the show back then? And Dexter just didn't recognise the emotion. No question, he was certainly very fond of her and cared about her. He seemed genuinely rocked to his core after she died. Remember the bathroom breakdown at the beginning of season 5. I really love how you put it though, how with Deb and Rita we saw his humanity. And that's right, I think. You said if they could love him, so could we. They certainly did love him, although neither knew the whole Dexter. Deb arguably did in the end, but Rita never did. She loved Dexter, the man without a dark passenger, but the man she knew was a lie. She only saw a part of him, the part he chose to show her, And for his part, how often did he treat her badly? Selfishly, letting her down, acting selfishly to pursue his dark urges, putting her second. Honestly, he wasn't the best partner, was he? But Rita certainly was a good soul, that's for sure. Thank you for that email. It's something to think about. John emailed with a quick thought, wondering whether Prater and all his involvement with foster homes, did he ever cross paths with Brian? And as we've just talked about, Michelle thought this too. It's possible, I suppose. Is the world that small? Sometimes it is, so who knows? Thanks, John. Here's Travis.
Dexter Resurrections continues to please Gareth. It's playing the hits, unironically. Dexter is making smart decisions, and so far as he's not repeating the mistakes from the past, he's realizing that serial killer Poon is only temporary, but a relationship with your son is forever. He's being honest with his son, which I suppose didn't go over too well in New Blood, but it's working now. The only outright dumb mistake Dexter seems to be making is purchasing the same exact blood slide box that he used twice in the past, and now he's hiding it in the already discovered hiding spot in his home that he's a guest in. I guess this all goes to show you that Dexter really don't give a fuck no more. I like the direction that they took the Lady Vengeance storyline. The large cast continues to dwindle down. I don't know where they're taking her story, but she's in a position where she can be kind of like put on ice indefinitely. They could kill her off if they wanted, but I suspect that they won't do that. They could bring her back later this season or next season. They could get her out of jail on any number of BS excuses that they've used in the past. You know, your Miranda rights weren't read to you, so we gotta let you go. Or, the chain of custody on your mouth gag got broken, so you're free to walk. Or, Chief Bishop called and she said that actually you're allowed to kill a little bit of people in New York City. So you're good to go, Mia. We'll see you around. The highlight of the episode was Dexter's bizarre phone call to the police. He had a similar scene in season 3 where he was doing like a southern white trash affectation and he was tricking Ramon Prado. His accent in this was very funny to me. I know it was supposed to be New York, but it was like so heightened. It was like John Travolta with the mix of like the Batman video game goons, like, oh my God, you gotta get down here. It's so beautiful. Oh geez. Oh God. It's the freaking bat. Oh God. Believe it or not, that might be all I have to say this week. Needless to say, I'm pretty pleased with the series so far. We're already halfway through the season. And, I'm really looking forward to seeing what's good next week, Gareth.
Thanks, Travis. Yeah, I don't think Mia's about to die. But maybe she's a character they're going to put on the shelf, metaphorically speaking, and bring her back later on. I could well see that happening. Maybe she escapes jail or the courthouse somehow and goes after Dexter, living up to her Lady Vengeance name. A big bad for a later season. We've got another listener emailing from Brazil this week. I love this extra international reach we're getting. Hello to anyone else listening in Brazil. I do look at the stats for where in the world this podcast gets downloaded, and as you'd expect, the obvious countries are there at the top of the list in terms of download numbers, but there are so many in the list. And further down, there are some very interesting corners of the world where people have listened to this. If you feel like you're maybe listening from one of these places, send me an email just to say where you are, just to say hello. You don't have to send a theory or voicemail or comments if you don't want to. I'd just be interested, and I'll give you a mention on the podcast. Anyway, Alison from Sao Paulo emailed saying he's listened to all the episodes of the podcast, which is brilliant. Thank you. He writes, you told Scott Reynolds how scenes with two characters talking in a room could become the best part of a show, more than any high-budget action sequence, and I totally agree with you. My misty eyes when Dexter says, I have so many reasons to kill, but you are my reason to live, in the last Dexter Harrison scene of the episode can tell you that. That scene also treated us to superb acting from both. Harrison saying in a choked voice, finally, after his dad finally admits that Rita died because of his selfishness, his mistake, and that broke him. This was followed by the line I mentioned above, Dexter's most emotional words, truly coming from the bottom of a heart he believes he doesn't have. And the quick but no less moving shot of the 3 generations together, Dexter looking at his son with Harry in the background. Yeah, that was a great scene, and it's moving me again, reading your description of it and remembering the scene. Great bit, and surely will rank up there with the best of them when we come to talk about the season highlights at the end. It really packed an emotional punch. Seeing the 3 generations together was wonderful. Really well acted too, I agree. And I'm sure if Scott's listening to this and listening to you react and me react, and the other feedback about this scene, I imagine he's smiling to himself and satisfied that the writers have done such a good job, because I'm sure they were hoping for that kind of reaction. Alison also poses some questions about what's to come. What is Leon Prater's deep personal place that makes him support foster homes and police officers? What is Charlie's relation to her mother and, even more intriguing, to students and school? Why do we need to know that Blessing's mother chose to die from her cancer at home rather than continue with hospital treatment? After Blessing's daughter and wife, now it's his mother who might be giving us some clues about his real character. You know, Alison, I don't know about that last one, about Blessing, but there was a moment with him this week when Dexter was back in his apartment, and there were sounds of arguing upstairs. I know Blessing might be very passionate and desperate for his mother to get treatment, and that desperation would be well placed. Who wouldn't want the best for their parent? And he doesn't want her to die. But honestly, in the moment, I thought the sounds seemed a bit heated, a bit too heated, or almost violent. Although Dexter would have surely picked up on it if it sounded violent and that was their intention. So I'm probably wrong, but it did make me wonder for a minute. And I do remember what Antari said to me, that in regard to his character, that the writers excel in surprising us. So who knows what's down the road for Blessing. Alison finishes off by saying, I'll conclude by saying that I like Claudette and her peculiar ways of investigating and dealing with people, as well as the actress's performance. And I don't like Batista's hunt for Dexter, exactly because of the character's charisma and friendship with Dexter being so solid throughout 8 seasons, which could eventually pay off with Dexter's redemption, the path I feel and hope he's heading for. Thanks, Alison. Some really excellent thoughts there. I hope to hear from you again. Alright, that's it for another week and another strong episode. I love how this season's continuing to develop, and anytime we get some movement on Dexter's personal journey, development for his core character, I'm sitting up and taking complete notice. Not that I nap when Dexter's on, no way. But you know what I mean, it's Dexter catnip for me. Okay, busy times, so I won't stick around and waffle now. I'll say thank you for listening, thank you to the Patreons, and wow, we really are at the halfway point, aren't we? Until Travis mentioned, I'd not thought about that fact this week. 5 left, and we'll be here to dissect it together, as always. Join me, please, next week. And until then, take care. Bye for now.